All join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. The palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Good to see you all here on a Saturday. Apparently, y'all had nothing better to do than to show up here, so thanks for showing up. I always laugh when, and it stuck in my head even more today for some reason. Actually, I know why, but so I talk about him a lot, but Suzuki Roshi, or Shunryu Suzuki, who came over in the 50s, 60s from Japan, took over what is known as the San Francisco Zen Center. And he built, again, a separate story, but he is, I think, one of the folks that is most responsible for Buddhism taking root into this country. But anything you were doing in San Francisco in the 60s kind of caught on. And he was at the heart of all of that. He really turned his back on the Japanese community to bring Buddhist teachings and meditation to what was in San Francisco at that time. So I have studied him the most, and a lot of respect and admiration for his teachings. But the reason I bring him up is a totally different story. So there's a fire exit back there, as is the sign, just so you know now. Since we're being recorded and streamed to millions of people, I want to make sure I point out fire safety. But there's a door back there, and so I have my little kind of, I don't know if any of you played sports or anything like that. You have like your pregame rituals and things like that. So I have my kind of rituals and things that I always do prior to sitting. And as I was opening the door and all that today, I laughed because there's a story about Suzuki Roshi where he started a sesshin, which is a long meditation practice. And it said that there's a great book called Crooked Cucumber, all about his life and how he built San Francisco Zen Center and all that. And his wife is credited with a lot of the stories in there. And apparently as he got older, his memory was not so great. And so he would forget things. And the story is that one day he started a sesshin with lots of people filled in the meditation hall and began it, and then walked out to go to the market. And apparently just left everybody sitting there. And so, it's been a while since I've read it, and I don't even remember if the details are in there. Like, I don't know if he forgot they were there, if he just chose not to go back. I don't really remember. But in my head, the story's cute because I think he just forgot that all the people were there. But the funniest part about the story was that, in Zen practice is really intense with the training and discipline. And so as the meditation started, you wouldn't move. You wouldn't get up until it was done. And you don't know that the person who just started your sesshin is out shopping at the market and completely forgot about you. So he left all these people just sitting there. And I've always found that to be just absolutely hysterical. And it went through my head this morning as I opened the door, because I was thinking, I opened the door and I saw the sun and I was like, oh, it's so nice. Maybe I'll just leave. and then we'll see what happens. So eventually somebody would have gotten up and left probably, and then it would have trickled. You would have left. How long? 1 minute? That's it. That's pretty good. It's your first time here? All right. Well, hopefully you'll come back and then we can get you up to 2 minutes, right? Because what you'll eventually realize is you being here has nothing to do with me. You being here has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with the Dharma Bum Temple. Has nothing to do with Buddhism. Has nothing to do with meditation. It has everything to do with you figuring out what you're running from. And what most people are running from is what? Those of you who've been around here a while? Yourself. So 1 minute or an hour, as soon as you leave, there you are. And so the practice is to recognize that we have to learn to be with ourselves. And nowhere we go or anything else is going to fix that or save that. It's just you. This practice is a mirror. It's just looking back at yourself and saying, what am I running from? What are my fears? What are my attachments? What are my cravings? What are my desires? What are my angers? What is all that about? That's what Buddhism, I don't even like the word to say Buddhism teaches you, but what Buddhism does is it creates an opportunity for you to begin to look at the cause of all of the suffering and problems in your life. And no, it's not the person sitting next to you or the person you just ran away from or the person who harmed you 30 years ago. All the pain and suffering in your life is your relationship and reaction to everything that has ever happened in your life. That's the pain, that's the suffering. And so that's why this practice is so beautiful, because it is an opportunity to begin to reflect on the nature of your own mind. And as the expression goes, wherever you go, there you are. That's what that's referencing. That we could, fly halfway around the world and sit on a mountaintop in Nepal and chant with lamas all day long. But if you're an angry, pissed off person, then you just spent a lot of money to go sit on a mountaintop and be an angry, pissed off person. So facing ourselves is the challenge. All right. So with that, we'll start a meditation practice. There's a couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Am I doing it right or doing it wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. All right, posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten, shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap. Same thing if you're on a bench or a chair. Just trying to sit up straight. You didn't pay all this money and come all this way to fall asleep, so do your best to stay awake. I will say things periodically to wake you up because you have fallen asleep, or remind you that you're lost in thought. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement does not make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts or you have an itch. So don't ponder for 20 minutes if it's okay to scratch your arm. Scratch your arm and return to stillness. I will guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence, and we'll be done by about 6 o'clock tonight. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound. each thought, each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. Most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's what you get. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your days. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. It's not even noon yet. Most of you won't even make it till 1 o'clock before you're disturbed. No offense, of course, to all the enlightened ones in the room. This practice is not easy. Meditation, Buddhist practice is not the escape. It is not a quick fix. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess and you're dealing with anger, sadness, depression, stress, anxiety on a daily basis, which is probably just about every person in this room, this practice will help you see that and become aware of it so you can then make changes in your life so your days are more peaceful. Less stress, less anger, less anxiety, less sadness, less depression. That's this practice. Meditation is free, Buddhist practice free. Sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter on a daily basis. The beauty of a gathering like this at a place like this, which there are lots of, is that in these moments, people are kind, gentle to each other. A bunch of strangers. Well, you're not all strangers, but I've been in this place every day for 15 years, and or nearly. And the funniest thing is, in all those years, this was a conversation that came up the other day. Other than, unless it was, well, I'll just say this first. In all those years, I've never seen or heard anybody come here and be mean or rude to somebody else that was here. What I was starting to say was, unless you come with somebody that you're with a lot and you were already being mean and rude to them and then you showed up here. Again, I'm not putting anyone on the spot here, but that does happen. Occasionally couples come here and they might have some things going on and it might spill over, But it's fascinating to me because these are the same people in this room that when you get out there and you're on the roads and there's traffic and you're calling customer service and you're frustrated and you're standing in line because you're angry the person in front of you is not moving quick enough. These are the same people here that are out there doing that. And this to me was one of the really greatest realizations, I think, within Buddhist practice is that Buddhism is not about this thing that is far away from our lives or something that's very old or something that's in another language or another culture. It's right here every day in your life is the practice of the Buddhist teachings. And it's in those moments that I just described, traffic, waiting in line for coffee, being at the grocery store, dealing with customer service, dealing with loved ones. It's the holiday time, so I know everyone's so happy and pleasant around family during these times of the year. A lot of laughter there. It's tough with these masks because you can't see smiles at all, but sometimes the laughter and smiles is so big that it just trickles into the eyes. You got a lot of work to do, don't you? But it's good. I don't know if you heard me say it. If you sit towards the front, you get enlightened quicker. So you might want to trade seats. These are tough times in general. It's just you're alive. Things are tough. That's what I mean. Right? I'm not talking about the other obvious stuff that's going on, like just being alive. I mean, that's what the Buddha taught. The Buddha said, the first thing he said was life is filled with suffering. I mean, that's right there in your face. He didn't say life is filled with suffering because of a pandemic. He didn't say life is filled with suffering because of a failed relationship, or life is filled with suffering because of anger you've been carrying around for 30 years. He just said life is filled with suffering. And he wanted you to understand the cause of that. And the cause of that is your mind. That's the beauty of it, is that it is in your control. You have the ability to recognize your greed, anger, and ignorance, which is the second noble truth that he taught, your cravings, your desires, the world that you want to be completely different from how it is, the life that you want to be completely different from how it is. Those views, those attachments, those cravings are the reason that you suffer. And that's what makes this practice, I find, beautiful, because it puts the I'm looking for the right word. I want to say responsibility, but I don't like that word. I want to say control. I don't like that word because, enough people in here have enough problems with the word control. Anyone here like to control things? Again. But it puts the ownership on us. We have the ability to live a peaceful, happy life. Unfortunately, it just takes time, takes practice, takes work. So if you've been angry and miserable for 30 years, it's going to take more than 3 weeks of meditation to fix that. Often this practice gets more challenging when you begin. It gets a little bit harder because if you come into practice, and a lot of people come here often are brand new to it. If you come in thinking that like you're going to do this Buddhist meditation thing and automatically your life's going to be better, it doesn't work that way. I mean, it takes, I don't know, I'm just making this number up just from my own personal experience, but it takes about 2 years just to realize what a mess you actually are. To like own that. I mean, imagine all the years you spent blaming everybody else for all your problems. It takes a long time to like stop that pattern and say, this is my mess. Once you own that, then you begin to see benefit from this practice. But that takes, for some people, maybe it's simple. For me, it took about 2 years of no longer blaming others for my mess. So with that, I'll pause. I really always just prefer to open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And we use the rest of our brief time this morning, and I'll respond to your thoughts and questions. Yeah.
Okay, so going back to what you started today's meeting with, and you go back there and you open the door and close the door.
Has this question been sitting with you since I said that?
No, even
Okay.
longer than that.
Longer than that. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
What is it? Because your little ritual, I get rituals.
Yeah.
Why do you disappear back there and then you come back?
I'm debating on whether I tell you the truth or whether I make up a story. I'll tell you the truth. So when we reopened the temple after 16 months of being closed, right? And how can I sum this up? So almost 15 years, you closed for 16 months, you're in a pandemic, you're trying to figure out how you're going to open up and limit seating and keep everybody as safe and healthy as possible. And you're talking about masks, you're talking about socially distanced seating, you're talking about windows and fans and all these things we're exploring prior to opening, right? To figure out how can we keep people that do come here comfortable. That's our number one priority, safe, and by comfortable, I mean feeling safe. And the mask was an obvious one, right? Mask required, period. If people have a problem with it, then, I'm sorry, right? I'm rambling here a little bit, but one person in 4 months really had a problem with it. And I thank you all for, not having, we all have enough problems. That's the last thing we need to add to our problems. But it's been really beautiful that we've only had one person in 4 months. And it's funny, they talked about, not wanting to follow restrictions. I forget the word they used, like rules or guidelines. And I didn't even bother getting into debate with this person, but I thought about it. How many of you are wearing shoes right now? Nobody. Nobody's ever yelled at us for that, right? How many of you, this is also a trick question, use the bathroom and close the door? Hopefully all of you, because there's 8 signs that tell you to do that, right? How many of you see the signs that say meditation in progress, be silent? Nobody has problems with all of this stuff. But as soon as you tell people you're going to reopen and you put a mask on them, you never know what you're going to get, right? So back to your question, when we said, okay, well, we're all wearing masks around here, and we talked about when we lead, the person sitting here, should we or should we not have a mask on? And so we felt that the way the seating is set up, that, me at this point, vaccinated 3 times, felt comfortable, safe enough that you're all far enough away that when I sit here and leave, I have to take my mask off. But coming into the first class, we said, well, if you sit down and all of a sudden you take your mask off, what do you think everybody else is going to do? Take their mask off. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to go back there and pretend I'm doing something. And I'm going to open the door and I'm going to close the door and I'm going to make it seem like there's some magic behind the curtain going on. And I'm going to come back out with my mask off. And hopefully they'll all be so confused on what's going on that they won't think about it. I know. That's why I said, should I give you the honest answer or make something up? That's it. I go back there, I pretend to be doing something, I open the door, I close the door, I put my mask in my pocket, and I sit down.
You know what?
It works. So, yeah, you asked. But I mean, that was all serious, but in seriousness, I do really appreciate, Buddhist practice is a lot about dropping the ego. I mean, it's not a lot, it's all about dropping the ego. And, doing this long enough, you see so many people over the years that, most people don't like being told what to do. And Buddhist temples are filled with things that are telling you what to do, or more specifically, what not to do. And very rarely do people ever have problems with that. They kind of just expect it or embrace that as part of the territory, right? But if you go, especially if you go to cultural Buddhist temples, I mean, it is, and then specifically to a Zen practice, I mean, it is clockwork, the way things operate, right? Living in a monastery for 11 months back in 2005, I would give tours when Western folks would come to the monastery, and we had a military group that came in and they said that this monastery runs tighter than the military does, as far as the discipline and structure with etiquette, behavior, training, discipline, rules. I mean, it's no joke. So, but all of these things are there to help train you to get over yourself. And as soon as we question, like, why this, why that, we can practice it in places like this. So when you go out there, you stop fighting with everyone about everything. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyone argue with people a lot? Wouldn't you love to just stop? There's like a half a hand, yes, right? You can put both hands up, it's all right. Like, wouldn't you just love to stop arguing with people all the time? It's so annoying. It's so frustrating, but we're arguing because we're holding so tightly onto our views. And Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Zen Buddhist monk, said, nirvana, freedom from suffering, which is the third noble truth of the Buddhist teachings, is freedom from views. One of the most beautiful teachings I've ever heard. And as I share that, then everyone has the view of, well, do I agree with that or do I not agree with it? And the point I came to for me in my practice to realize is that my views are not going to go away. But how attached am I to them? And can I stop constantly trying to prove that I'm right to people? Because growing up, that's how I was. And that just got really annoying. And if you're good at it, it's even worse. Because then it's just like, it's like that pat on the back, like, yes, I won another argument. You there? So, other questions? But the pre-game ritual stuff, I do have rituals and things that I go through, but that's that ritual. Yeah.
Expectations mess up our lives.
Yes.
How?
Oh, how? Oh, all I heard was expectations mess up our lives. Yes, they do. So, what's the question? How do you stop having expectations?
Can you explain a little bit about how they mess up our lives?
Okay, so yes. So what you're asking me, if I just to repeat, is you're asking, how do expectations mess up our lives? That's your question. Okay. And I thought you were asking me how to not have so many expectations, but one would have to come to the realization that expectations are screwing up your life before you would even ponder how. Okay. Did you drive here?
No.
How'd you get here?
She drove.
She drove. Did she drive? So she drove, yes. Okay. She drove a car? Okay. Are you sure her car's going to be there when you get out of here?
Probably.
Are you sure she's going to be here when you get out of here?
I was actually looking to see.
Make sure she didn't leave. Right? The fighting I was talking about earlier, can you relate to that? Let's get back to the car. So you hope the car's there. You hope she's there. Maybe the car got towed. Where'd you park?
That's cool.
Ooh, you don't want to. No, you're fine. Don't worry. But maybe the car got towed. Your whole day, if that happens, is completely different. Right? Maybe you would respond to that with no problem. Maybe you're like, hey, it's your car, not my problem. Right? Maybe you would take ownership of it. Maybe you pay to have it out. Maybe that money you had to pay $300-400 for having your car towed really impacted your finances. Then maybe you can't go on a trip you were hoping to, or maybe you have to work extra hours, or maybe it's no problem, right? We don't know, right? But you have, without even knowing it, an expectation of the next 2 hours of your day, which includes, maybe Travis will lock the doors and you're all going to be stuck in here all day long. We don't know. But we have these expectations. And I'm not talking about grand life goals. I'm not talking about, big expectations. I'm talking about just simple little things that we expect all day long. And the problem isn't so much the expectations. The problem arises when things don't go as planned. You ever have a day not go as planned? Those are your expectations not working out. How do you respond to those? Are you always kind and gentle and happy when things don't go your way? No. And when you're not pleasant and kind and gentle when things don't go your way, who's impacted by that?
And everybody else.
There you go. And everybody else. So without knowing it, these little subtle expectations that you have for your day that don't go how you want are hurting other people because of your reaction. But we don't always think about it that way. What most people do is we think about how things impact me. I'm just talking about everybody. This is very much how we tend to operate. We wake up and think, do I have breakfast to eat today? What am I going to have for lunch? Do I have clothes to wear? Do I like this? Do I like that? Very rarely do we think about other people's needs first, or sometimes even at all. And so this practice is to recognize that, especially when things don't go our way, our choices, our decisions really do impact each other. Now, something I share a lot that I learned years ago was with this practice is to never expect anything from anyone ever. And that's become a really beautiful practice. It doesn't mean one doesn't still have goals or aspirations or motivation or drive. It doesn't mean that you just throw in the towel and surrender and give up. It just means that you're not expecting other people to be a certain way, because they got their own problems. They got their own mess. They're dealing with their own struggles. But when you have expectations, especially when you put those on other people, that's really tough. Anyone in here expect other people to be a certain way? Yet, where are we at? Does that help address your question?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great question. And then the follow-up, once you wrestle with that, if you've embraced that and you're like, okay, yes, that makes sense, then the real heart of the question is, how do we do that? Right? It's a good question. Come back next week for that one. Other questions? Yeah.
Can you piggyback on that regarding karma and how, the Western definition of karma and Buddhist definition of karma, and
Sure.
when you do have expectations and you act like an asshole, how that impacts people moving forward?
Well, the last part of your question was, when you do act like an asshole, how does that impact people moving forward? That one's really easy because I acted that way for most of my life and it impacted people pretty negatively. That's really simple, right? We can be kind to people and we don't know what is going to happen. We can be mean to people and we don't know what's going to happen. But what I've learned from this practice is, and I'll talk about karma in a minute, is I like to err on the side of thinking that if I'm a kinder, gentler human to myself and other people, there's a better chance that it will be received in a better way than if I'm a mean, angry, depressed person. So I like the first side of things. Your question about karma, so my definition of karma is what I learned from Buddhist teachings. And it is also, especially for those who are maybe brand new to Buddhism, karma is the most misunderstood, misinterpreted word, I think, within Buddhist teachings, right? Often people think karma is what goes around comes around. And that's a very selfish view of karma, because what that says is that, again, it's all about me. There was a comic years ago I saw in the newspaper, and it was like a Stonehenge type figure with these, big rock stones, almost like in a domino effect going around. And there's a person sitting under, and the person is pushing this way. And it shows them all falling, but it's coming back on them. And underneath it, it says karma. That is not what karma is. Karma would actually be if the thing was going in a straight line or in a crooked line, but it wouldn't be coming back to you. Think of playing pool. When you shoot pool, you hit the cue ball into the rack. Every ball goes into a different direction every single time. Your entire life, you are the cue ball. The word karma literally means action. That's the definition of the word karma, is action. We tend to think it's, well, they did good, so good happens. They did bad, bad happens, or the karma is going to get them. It doesn't work that way. Karma being action is not what we get, it's what we give. Karma is what we put into the world. And the Buddha taught this happens three ways: body, speech, and mind. What we think, what we say, and what we do. That's why with the meditation at the very end, I always say with the body still, the speech quiet, and the mind learning to settle. This is how it said the Buddha neutralized his karma. Still the body, still the speech, still the mind. That's the practice. That is stilling your karma. If you stay physically still, other than, a little bit of movement here or there, you're not physically harming anyone, right? Another thing happens when you're doing meditation. What happens with your speech? You're silent. When you're silent, you can't say things that harm people. Then you're left with the one thing that we're all stuck with. This, the mind, the thoughts. So the Buddha taught what we think, what we say, and what we do. These are our three ways of generating karma. What we think, what we say, and what we do is what we bring into the world. And that's what impacts others. So karma is not about us. It's not about what we get or what we deserve. What do we give to people, to places, to things, with our body, speech, and mind? That's the heart of Buddhist practice. Does that make sense? There's a total glare and I can't see you at all, so I don't know okay. And karma, that is very different often from what people think karma is, especially the way the word karma is just thrown around. Like that karma is going to get them. It might not. At least not in, any relatively soon time. The teaching is also that all karmic seeds bear fruit. So eventually, yes, but don't know when. So I'm in trouble. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
I think for me, one of the biggest barriers of staying present is like my attachment to, let's say, the past and things out of my control. And I'm just wondering what the view is on, things out of our control.
Yeah, so the question was that one of your biggest barriers is your attachment to the past and things that are out of your control, right? Okay. There's a meme, it's one of my favorites, and I'm not a big meme fan. There's like 10 of them that I like, and this is like top 3. And it says, relax, nothing. And I ruined it already. It's got this person sitting there like on a beach, and they're looking out, they're probably drinking a beer or something like that, I don't know, and they're looking out at the beach and it's beautiful, and it says, relax, nothing is under control. Nothing. But we spend our entire lives trying to be in control or put things under our control. What's interesting with the way you asked the question, which is worded very differently from how that often comes up, you talked about your attachment and trying to control past, which is absolutely, I know you know this, but I'm just going to tell you anyways, impossible. You cannot change. Did you have breakfast this morning? Oh, well, bad example. I don't know. Let's just pretend you did. You can't change what you had for breakfast this morning, nor can you change any pain. Now, here's the other thing. My guess is when you talk about controlling the past, are you trying to change or control all the good things that happened to you in the past? No. Why not?
They're good.
Because they're good. So do you actually have this notion and idea that your entire life is going to be only good? The real, I think, heart of this question, my master used to always say, Jeff, when you ask questions, don't look for answers, but try to rephrase and rethink the question. And so I throw this back to you almost as if it's another thing to think about. Instead of thinking, how can I change or control past? And you just shared with all of us that you don't want to change the good stuff, just the bad stuff. Start by recognizing your life is going to be filled with good stuff and bad stuff. Does that make sense? So I would only imagine, you seem pretty intelligent, that you understand bad things will also happen in your future, right? Embrace those as part of the journey. It's inevitable. And the beauty of control, while we all seek it in, I think, very unhealthy, I shouldn't say we all, many people seek control in very unhealthy ways. Some of you have no problem with it. But this idea of control is that in a very unhealthy way, we often try to control others, other people, places, things, expectations, outcomes. But the beauty of control, where we can impact our future, is that we do have complete control over everything we think and say and do now. You ever made a mistake in the past and said, I'm never going to do that again, and then done it? Like the next day, it's like, that was stupid. I'm never going to do that again. And then there you are, that next night doing the same dumb thing over again, right? So try to cut through the areas that you do have control over, which is just you, right? I mean, it's very simple for me to sit here and say that, well, you can't control the past, it's done. But that's harder to come to terms with. But I think if you practice recognizing that life is going to be filled with good and bad, it might actually help you look at the past as, and ultimately what the Buddha was teaching, and I'll close with this thought, is not to label. So now kind of forget everything I just said and to not label things as good or bad. That everything in our life that has happened has been an experience. Of course, we can say this is good and this is bad. And most of us would agree on many of those things. Then there are many things that I would point out and people would argue whether that was good or bad. The reality is all of these things are just moment-to-moment experiences that have occurred in our past. And our lens, our perception, our judgment, our expectation of those things is what helps us create this illusion of good versus bad. And when we view the things in the past as bad and harmful and painful, we're like, this sucks. This ruined my life. And I'm going to let it ruin my life for 40 years. Because I'm going to still tell myself the story of what happened 17 years ago over and over and over again. And now it's ruining me today. It happened 17 years ago. But if I can see it as just something that happened that was unpleasant, and that it made me who I am today, that it made you who you are today, you have opportunities to control your future. Does that help? Not easy. great questions. None of these things are easy. I mean, you know, people have been at this stuff for 2,500 years and they're still talking about one Buddha. So clearly it's a challenge. So I'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to the more than 4 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, and to their family and friends who suffer at this time, and to Daniel Woot during his time of rebirth, and to Mark and Nancy and their family and friends who suffer as well. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace. So a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this space, as I said earlier, nearly 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on, different people leading. In person now, we have Tuesday night. I do this on Tuesdays as well. Wednesday nights, Alex does a metta, loving kindness practice. And Thursday, Travis does the Dharma Bum basics and meditation. And then again here Saturday morning. We've had a recovery sangha for about 10 years. Anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, life. Tuesday night meets downstairs. That also requires an RSVP, just like this one. That space is smaller, and we cap it at 17 people downstairs. And then the Sunday Recovery Sangha also meets up here at 10 o'clock, and you can just show up. In the new year, we're hoping to add back our Zen practice on Monday nights, and I need to talk to Amy and Kayla, but potentially as well the Tonglen practice, which has been virtual. Maybe we'll add that in as well. So anything else I didn't mention is probably happening online virtually. So we still have a mix of both going on. Temple closes during the day. During the week, we sit Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. and 8:30. So you're welcome to come sit. And then the temple closes until there's an evening class. It is open Saturdays and Sundays from 12 to 3 if anybody wants to sit. Buddha for You also, we do have kind of updated holiday hours. That's been closed really for 16 months also. But it'll be open Tuesday through Friday, 12 to 7 downstairs. And then it's open now, Saturday and Sunday, also 12 to 3. So for books or anything else you might need, Maggie's down there. You can check that out as well. Again, we appreciate you being here, doing the masks, and figuring out all my secrets and everything. I got nothing left. I'm done. So I appreciate y'all being here. I hope your car is there. You're probably fine. Be well.